The hum of fluorescent lights was the only sound left in the office tower at that hour. Emma sat hunched over her desk, eyes fixed on her screen, fingers dancing across the keyboard. The city outside was alive, but up here, 24 floors above the noise, it was just her, and the quiet shuffle she never acknowledged. James entered the room softly, pushing a cart filled with cleaning supplies. He moved with practiced grace, careful not to disturb the woman immersed in deadlines and decisions. Every night was the same. He cleaned her trash can, dusted the desk, wiped the windows. She never looked up. James didn't mind. He had long grown used to being invisible in places like this, places that gleamed with ambition and urgency, where people forgot how to say hello. Still, he took pride in the shine of the glass, the fresh scent of lemon polish. Every surface he touched was a quiet offering of dignity, even if no one noticed. Emma barely registered his presence. To her, he was part of the background, like the vending machines or the potted plants. Her world was filled with pitch decks and client calls, not janitors with stories. Yet, on this night, as James turned to leave, her pen rolled off the desk and landed at his feet. He bent to pick it up. Their eyes met for the first time. Just for a second. And for reasons she didn't understand, that second lingered in her mind. The office felt colder than usual. Emma sat motionless at her desk, phone pressed to her ear as her mother's voice cracked through the speaker. "It's his birthday today," her mother whispered. A beat of silence followed. Emma's throat tightened, her eyes suddenly burning. Her father had been gone 2 years now, but grief didn't keep calendars. It arrived in moments like this, uninvited and sharp. She ended the call quietly, staring at the photo on her desk of the two of them laughing on a beach, long before cancer stole his smile. Her chest heaved unexpectedly, and a sob slipped out before she could stop it. She turned away, covering her face. She hadn't cried in months, especially not here. Not in this office where vulnerability was a weakness. A soft creak at the door broke her spiral. James stood there, holding a trash bag in one hand. He froze, clearly unsure whether to stay or leave. Emma wiped her eyes quickly, embarrassed. But instead of speaking, he simply stepped inside, walked to the cabinet, and set a box of tissues gently on her desk. He didn't say much, just 4 words, "Everything okay, miss?" Emma looked at him, eyes red. She nodded slowly, not trusting her voice. He gave a small nod in return and quietly resumed his work, careful and respectful, as always. But in the silence that followed, something shifted. For the first time, she saw not a janitor, but a person. And it made all the difference. The nights grew longer, and Emma found herself staying later. Not because of work, but because of something else she couldn't quite name. James would arrive at his usual time, pushing his cart with the same quiet rhythm. But now, instead of silent passing, there were words. First, casual comments. Then, real conversation. One evening, as James emptied her trash, Emma asked, "Do you have family?" He smiled. 2 kids. Grown now. Boy and a girl. She turned from her computer, curious. That night, he told her about his daughter in nursing school, his son trying to open a small auto shop. How he'd raised them alone after his wife passed. How he worked nights here and mornings at a school just to keep the lights on back then. Emma listened, surprised by how much she wanted to hear more. James didn't complain. He spoke with quiet pride, not bitterness. She found his steadiness comforting, even admirable, so different from the anxious whirl of her corporate world. She started offering him coffee. He always declined politely, but they'd talk. About books. Music. The city. About how the world sometimes felt too broken to fix. One night, James laughed and said, "At least this floor shines when I'm done." That's something. Emma smiled at that. There was something grounding in his presence, something real. In these nightly exchanges, a bridge was quietly being built. She was no longer the executive, and he was no longer the janitor. They were simply two people, sharing the silence. It was nearly midnight when Emma leaned back in her chair, exhausted from a week that had felt heavier than most. The news had been full of tragedies again, another shooting, another protest, another thread unraveling in the fabric of a society that felt increasingly fractured. James had just finished wiping down the glass doors and was about to leave when he noticed her staring out the window, unusually quiet. He hesitated, then asked, "You okay tonight?" His voice was gentle, familiar now. Emma turned to him, her eyes tired. "I don't know, James. Some days it just feels like everything's falling apart. The world, people, kindness." James nodded slowly. "Yeah," he said. "But maybe that's why we don't give up. Even if it's just small things." He shrugged, half smiling. "All I can do is clean up one floor at a time." She looked at him, really looked. There was something in his simple truth that hit her deeper than any speech or article ever had. A silence stretched between them before she spoke again. "Do you think we could start right here?" she asked softly. James raised an eyebrow. "Start what?" "Change. Hope. Something better." That night, she outlined an idea, a mentorship program to bring in young people from underserved neighborhoods, to give them access, support, a voice. And she wanted James to help lead it. He was stunned. Not used to being asked, let alone seen like that. He didn't answer right away. But his eyes said everything. Maybe change really could begin, right here. Year had passed, and the office looked different, not just the furniture or the branding, but the energy. Laughter echoed down the halls where silence used to live. Young interns moved between desks with wide eyes and hopeful questions, many of them from neighborhoods that once felt a world away from this high-rise in the sky. James stood near the coffee station, dressed in a crisp shirt instead of a janitor's uniform. He still came in every evening, but now as a mentor, not a cleaner. Emma had kept her promise. The mentorship program had launched and grown faster than anyone expected. With James at the heart of it, it wasn't just professional development, it was personal transformation. At a staff meeting that day, Emma stood before the team, a slideshow behind her showing photos of the interns and their progress. When she got to the last slide, a candid shot of James laughing with two interns, she paused. "I want to introduce the man who reminded me that real change doesn't wait for permission," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "It starts with seeing the people we pass every day. It starts with respect. It starts with listening. It starts right here." James stepped forward, humble as always, his eyes wet but proud. The room erupted in applause, not for a janitor, not even for a mentor, but for a man who sparked something bigger than himself. Sometimes the smallest light is all it takes to ignite a brighter world.